The next big trend in the music industry is going to change music consumption, and that's going to change the business forever. Real metrics like watch time, clicks, and user interactions are often hidden behind some of these view numbers. Bottom line is that the online metrics that we all relied on so much only a few years ago, especially views, are deeply flawed. Okay, this is episode number 571, and it's all about the latest news. For about the first 500 episodes of this podcast, I always included a segment of the latest business news. I stopped that when we began to concentrate more on video, but I received a lot of comments about how much people really miss that segment. So every so often, I'm going to include an episode dedicated to just interesting music news, at least as I see it. Here's the first edition. So let's start with this. Science says that music is simpler than it used to be. A group of researchers from Spienza University in Rome took a really deep dive into 20,000 song files that spanned over 400 years and came to a not so startling conclusion that songs have been gradually getting simpler over the years. Now, that culminates with what we're presented with today. They determined that classical music still remains the most complex of the genres. And who can be surprised with that? Rock, pop, hip-hop, jazz, electronic, and even contemporary classical have become a lot less complex in their construction. No one's surprised at that either when you just take a listen. I think the biggest reason is that loops and samples have taken their toll because there's not a whole lot that you can do with melody when it comes to 4 and 8 bar phrases. The other thing is that composition tools are so inexpensive that it doesn't take much to be an artist these days. Music goes in cycles, and sooner or later, we're going to transition away from these song forms to something that are more adventurous. We're long overdue for a new trend in music, and here's hope that it reaches us soon, and that it's not even more simple than it is today. Okay, how have hit songs changed over the last 5 years? Music research company Medea did a study on hit song DNA over the last 5 years and came up with some interesting data. Many things have changed, like songwriters. The average number of songwriters on a hit has gone from 4 to 5.3, and the average age of songwriters has gone from 31 to 36 years old. One of the reasons might be that the record labels feel that more ears are needed on a song so they can guarantee a hit. That makes it more difficult for younger songwriters to break in, as more and more superstars want to work with established writers, and they don't really want to give a fresh new face a look. The next thing that they found is producers. The average number of producers has gone from 1.8 to 3 on a hit song. Now, the interesting thing here is that now there's a separate producer just for the vocals, and that never happened before. Usually the producer produced the vocals, produced the music, produced the mix, went through everything, and that was the producer's job. Now it's pretty much changed. There are separate producers for each facet of the song. Next thing is song form. Hits with featured artists have gone from 60% to 50%. I think that's a pretty good thing, actually. The average track length has gone from 221 seconds to 219. So minor difference there. That's still about 3 minutes and 40 seconds, which is pretty much like it was 50 years ago. The intro length has gone from 7.4 to 9.5 seconds. Again, I think that's a pretty good thing. Now, finally, the longevity of a hit song. Songs now spend an average of 33.3 weeks on the top 100 chart, compared to 18.6 just 5 years ago. Now, despite the thousands of songs that are released every day, there are fewer than ever that are actually breaking through. This might be because of the algorithms of the streaming services, because they're now serving up hits over and over and over instead of discovering new songs. That's exactly the opposite of what they're supposed to do. This is working today, but it's not going to work for much longer. The next big trend in the music industry is going to change music consumption, and that's going to change the business forever. Now, do views really tell us about anything? So we're talking about video views now. Now, video views are supposed to represent popularity, engagement, and success. But the harsh truth is that these views are often meaningless because they're manipulated and they're really misleading. So what counts as a view? This is going to tell you right away. For Instagram, the instant that you see the video, it counts as a play. And this is even including autoplay. For TikTok, same thing. The instant you see it, and even including autoplay, it counts as a view. YouTube Shorts, the same thing. The instant you see it, even on autoplay, it counts as a view. Guess what? For Facebook, same thing. The instant you see it, the instant it comes on the screen, it counts as a view. Now, X is a little bit different because it takes 2 seconds to count as a view. Netflix is kind of interesting here because it takes 2 minutes, which still is kind of short when you think about you're looking at an episode, a long episode of a video or a movie. It turns out that the standard YouTube video view is probably the most impressive of any of these figures because it takes 30 seconds before it counts as a view. So you can see most of these things are false. They're just not giving you a good idea. So why is this happening? Well, for one thing, a high view count makes the platform seem more popular than they really are. And it's the same thing with the video. High view count makes everybody think it's really popular. High view numbers attract creators who are looking for visibility. And more importantly, it attracts advertisers that are seeking more reach. Real metrics like watch time and clicks and user interactions are often hidden behind some of these view numbers. The bottom line is that the online metrics that we all relied on so much only a few years ago, especially views, are deeply flawed. And the final thing, here's something I found interesting. AI-generated comments may now end social media as we know it. Both Instagram and Facebook are experimenting with AI-generated comments, and Reddit and LinkedIn users are already complaining about AI-generated comments that have been on the platform for a while. If you're a Quora user, you might have noticed that the platform is filled with AI-generated questions, and YouTube is now categorizing comments via a bot. The reason for this is that these platforms are trying to increase engagement by any means possible. Social media was supposed to be about people connecting to other people. Now it's all about engagement at all costs. Ask any social media marketing guru about how to increase your engagement. They're going to tell you to be authentic. But having a bot generate a comment or even a post is about as far away from authentic as you can get. It gets worse though. Meta, which is Facebook and Instagram, will now give you the ability to create a bot of yourself. Does anybody really think that this is a good idea? Try this experiment. Do a search for AI-generated comments and watch what happens. Not only will you find platforms that will let you comment using a bot, but also a number of AIs that you can use to generate a comment as well. In the end, advertisers pay for eyeballs, and now they can't trust if their eyes are real or not. As far as users are concerned, no one will comment if they're not sure if a post or a comment is real. This, in the end, might not be such a bad thing because, believe it or not, it's time for social media to evolve. And this just forces the issue. One thing's for sure, though, AI slop is taking over the internet, but people are taking notice. They're not fooled, and they're about to rebel. Now, here's something interesting. Researchers at Penn State have found a way to bend sound waves. Scientists have developed technology to create isolated pockets of sound that's localized, and they call audible enclaves. Let's talk about some audio basics first. Sound is a wave that's created by vibrations that are moving through the air. Low frequency sounds like bass and kick drums have really long wavelengths, but high frequency sounds like whistles and tambourines and cymbals have very short wavelengths. Diffraction and reflections cause the sound waves to spread out, and that makes control difficult, especially at low frequencies. So currently technologies like line array loudspeakers can focus sound directionally, but can't really focus sound enough for many situations. So this new technique is something called audible enclaves, and it uses ultrasound beams above 20,000 hertz that are inaudible, but can also carry an audible signal. The way it works is that two ultrasound beams at different frequencies intersect. When they do that, they generate an audible sound wave only at the intersection. Something called acoustic metasurfaces bend these ultrasonic beams the way that lens bend light. At the point where the beams cross, there's a difference frequency. And what that is, figure 40,000 hertz and 39.5 thousand hertz. So the difference between them is 500 hertz, and that's what you hear. The audible sound is only heard where the beams cross, otherwise you can't hear anything. Potential audio applications include personalized audio experiences in public spaces like museums and libraries, car passengers hearing different audio than the driver hears, and confidential speech zones in offices or military settings. There's some challenges, though. Nonlinear distortion is generated that can impact the sound quality. No surprise there. And a lot of energy is needed to generate these ultrasound fields. So although they're not available yet, audio enclaves are a major innovation in sound control in audio situations that really need it. So are hashtags really relevant anymore? The purpose of hashtags today is more and more blurred thanks to the way some popular platforms currently use them. For instance, Threads limits posts to just one hashtag, which they say is there to prevent spamming of popular topics. LinkedIn still supports hashtags, but also relies on keywords for post discovery. On X, Elon Musk has urged users to stop using hashtags altogether because he says the system doesn't need them for content discovery anymore. Instagram CEO says the hashtags offer virtually no benefit in post discovery, but they can help you align with certain communities. Instagram has also removed the ability to follow hashtags, which shows that they now have a reduced role. LinkedIn expert Richard Vanderblom has found that hashtags no longer boost post reach on LinkedIn either. But hashtags are still useful for community building and enhancing connection, and they might help with forming topic-specific groups. Many users still continue to use them out of a habit, even though their benefits might be limited. Overall, modern algorithms today rely more on post content rather than hashtags. That said, adding a hashtag won't hurt, but their discovery value is minimal compared to the way they were in the past. And finally, many musicians feel angry about AI issues and wonder why they can't strike like the writers and actors did a few years ago. The problem is that they lack collective bargaining power. Most musicians aren't unionized and classified as independent contractors under U.S. law. There is a musicians union, though. It's called the American Federation of Musicians, or the AFM, but they only represent orchestra, film, and theater musicians, and not most recording artists or bands. You'd think that all artists would need to do is get together and form a union, but there are actually some legal barriers. There are actually some U.S. laws that prevent musicians and songwriters from collectively bargaining, because if they did, they'd be accused of price fixing. This all goes back to the 1940s and 50s when the AFM was powerful and would frequently strike for better pay. However, laws like the Leah Act in 1946 and the Taft-Hartley Act in 1947 were passed specifically to weaken musicians' union. All this means that artists face a number of obstacles today for getting together. For instance, many fear retaliation from platforms like Spotify if they do organize. Then performing rights organizations like ASCAP and BMI are limited by federal consent decrees and can't really bargain for their members. There have been some efforts to organize, though. The Future of Music Coalition and United Musicians and Allied Workers have organized campaigns like Justice at Spotify, but so far that hasn't exactly spread fear into the hearts of music gatekeepers. As a result, artists today are categorized as gig workers with little protection. The only way to gain fair treatment going forward is collective action and unionizing. So I hope you enjoyed our little news break here. It's different from the normal podcasts that we do. But again, a lot of people have asked for this segment. So even though it's short, I hope I gave you something that might be different and unusual. So thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I will see you next time. Thanks for listening and being in my inner circle. Remember, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to questions@bobbyowsinski.com. You can also learn all about the latest in music, audio, and production news, and find out about openings for my latest online classes at bobbyowsinski.com. This is Bobby Owsinski. I'll see you next time.